All right, guys, we're back talking about a little bit more advanced concept of variables and random numbers. Okay, so uh, excuse me, I had to sneeze. Oh my goodness. One more time. There you go. All right, here we go. So we're going to talk about system variables, now, and random numbers. Okay, so system variables. So let's put in a few comments in our program so that we know what's going on. And this is to demonstrate system variables and random numbers, okay, in processing. I want to say that because some languages have a little bit different way of doing it, okay, but like I said, processing is very similar to Java, so it's very similar, okay. So remember in the basic methods video, we were doing the setup method and the draw method. Of course, we are going to need those again here. Always need these methods, okay, in every single program that we are going to do from here on out. Okay, so in the setup method, what do we do first? We usually change the size, right? So I'm going to change my size to 1000 by 1000. Yours can be 500 by 500, whatever it is that you would like to do there, okay? Whatever size or according to your computer, the monitor, resolution size, what have you. Say here you want to change the background to a different color. Let's say I want a green background. There it is there, okay? So my size is 1000 by 1000. I have background. My background is green. All right. So now I go into the draw method. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a rectangle kind of close to the center of the screen. So I'm going to say 400, 400. Oh, 400, 400. And it's going to go maybe 200 in width and 200 in height. So it's going to be a square. In the draw method, there's my rectangle there. Okay. So what I want to show you is that there are system variables, which are variables that are already built into the processing system that you can use. And two of those are going to be width and height, okay? Width and height are two system variables, okay? So width and height. We can use width and height in here in our programs, so we can adjust it as the size of the screen adjusts. Okay, let me show you how that is. So our width and height are system variables, and they're going to come out in a different color. So when I type width, it shows up as a pink color. Okay, so that means it's a system variable. So the width is actually the width of the screen. So width in this particular program is set to 1000. The height is the height of the screen that we set in the size, okay? So the height of this screen is 1000 as well. So we want to draw a rectangle in this position, but our size is this position. So what are we going to do? We're going to use our width and height system variables to do it, okay? So 1000, how do we get from 1000 to 400? Well, let's see. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up my calculator, and this is how you have to do it, okay? You take 1,000, you divide it by 400, and how much does that give you? 2.5, right? So here's what we're going to do. In here, we put width divided by 2.5, okay? Here, we're going to put height divided by 2.5, okay? Here's 1,000 divided by 200, which is 5. So we're going to say width divided by 5. And here we're going to say height divided by 5. Okay? Now, you don't want to say width divided by 2.5, width divided by 2.5, width divided by 5, width divided by 5 here. You don't want to say width, all of them for width, because that's going to give you a problem when you change the size of your screen. You want to keep it width and height for the X and the Y, okay? Width and height for the X and the Y. You got to keep it that way. Okay, so here we're going to run it again, and it should look exactly the same as it did before with the square in the exact same position. Now watch how this is cool, okay? Now watch what happens if I change this to 3,000, 3,000, okay? If I change this to 3,000, 3,000, look what happens. Here is my screen, and my square is actually in the same exact position as it was before. You can barely see that because it's so big. But let's say we go to 2,000, 2,000. How about that? Double the size and see what happens. You could say that, oh, I was going to do that because it's equal. So let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's say we're going to say 2,000 in width by 1,000 in height. How about that? And here's our rectangle here. It looks a little bit different because our screen is a little bit wider. You see that? So even if you switch it up, say you want 800 by 1,000, that rectangle should be relatively in the same position on the screen. You see it there? All right, so that's how you change stuff up. If you didn't do that and you just had the same program as before, like we had it before, which was 400, 400, and then 200, 200. I want to turn it up there. In a little bit, okay, then? So if you just had that, and if you changed, remember, let's say we change it to 800, 2,000. So look at our rectangle in this particular. So it's way off to the top, up, not in the right position that we want it to be in. So it's off to the top and not in the center of the screen, right? So instead of using the actual numbers, we want to get used to using these system variables width and height, so it can look nice and neat every single time. No matter where, no matter what the size of the screen is, it's going to look nice and neat. Okay, so you got to put width and height for X and Y. So it's the same thing for any ellipse or triangle as well. So let's say an ellipse. Normally our ellipse, so this one may be at 200, 400, and 300 wide and 100. So here's our ellipse. Let's check it and see what it looks like. It's over here, but the problem is our screen is all jacked up. So we'll make it even to begin with, and then you can set up the numbers so it's easier for you, right? So 1,000 is pretty easy. 500 is pretty easy. Like it's an even number, you can divide pretty easily by it. So you want to use a good number so that you can fix it up right the first time instead of using two crazy numbers and then you got all kinds of stuff going on down here. So here's the ellipse here. We want it to look like this no matter what the size of the screen it changes to. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in here for the X position. We're going to use the width, and we take the width and divide that by 5, right? Because it was 200. Here we're going to use the height in the Y position. We're going to divide it by 2.5. Okay, here this is width divided by like 3.3, I guess, and this one is height divided by 10. Okay, height divided by 10. So now should look about the same. And then when we change this, it's going to look the same as well. It's going to look relatively the same in the center of the screen. You know, the ellipse is a little bit different looking because of the elongation of the canvas here, but it's going to show up in the relatively same position. So that's how you do the system variables. Okay, so those are the system variables we need to worry about right now. We'll learn some more system variables when we're getting user input from the keyboard or the mouse. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about in this video is random numbers, okay? So let's say I'm going to go down here to the bottom, and I'm going to say I want a random number. So I'm going to print out, you remember that print line? I'm going to print out a random number between 0 and 10, okay? So I'm missing one right there. I put it in again. So it's going to print out my screen here. Is going to print out a random number between 0 and 10. Now, you got to notice that the draw method is repeating 60 frames per second, right? So it's printing out a number pretty much 60 times per second as the computer runs, all right? So it's a random number from 0 to 10. Now, you got to notice that the random is going to return a float, a value, okay? It does not return an integer, okay? So I'm going to put this right here, random numbers, okay? The two different ways to do it. You do random, and then the number inside. Actually, let me put this right here, one number inside. Or you can do random and two numbers inside. Okay, I'll tell you the difference here. One number is going to go from 0 to that number. Obviously, two numbers is going to go from the first number up to, but not including the second number. And it never includes this number. You see, it goes up. I'm going to just scroll up here a little bit. It goes up to 9.7, but it never goes to 10. Never goes to 10. The highest number it can go to is 9.9 repeating. It will never make it to 10. Okay? It will never make it to 10. So, you got to know that it's going from 0 up until 10. And it's returning a float. So if you want it to return a int, you're going to have to cast it as an int. You put that int in parentheses before random, and it's going to cast it as an int. See these numbers is returning here? It returns a 0, it returns a 9, but it never returns that 10. Okay? Let's say we want a random number from 10 to 20, up to, but it's not going to be including 20. So this is random from 10 up to, but not including the number 20. So when we run it, we're going to see 10s and 12s and 13s, 14s, 19s even, but we'll never see a 20 come out of here, okay? It doesn't include that last number. Very important, okay? So sometimes in your games, you're going to want a random number to be a decimal. Sometimes you're going to want it to be an integer, okay? It just depends on what you're doing in your game. So that random number, 10 to 20, these are going to be floats. These are going to be the decimal numbers because I haven't told it that I want that integer, okay? So there it is there. That's how to do the random numbers. A lot of times you're going to want a random number. Say we got a dice game or something. Say we got dice, right? I'm going to say die 1. Here's die 1, okay? We want a random number. And what numbers did the die go to? Can you get a 0? No, probably not. Can you get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6, correct? Yeah, you can get a 6 in there. So we got to go to 7, okay? Now, it's an integer variable, die 1, so we got to cast it as an int as well. Int, and I just want to print it out. So I just want to print out die 1. Here we go. So what's going to happen is it's going to print out a lot of die 1s. Here we go. So the first one is the random number that we printed up here. The second one, this is the integer, is the random number from 1 to 7. You see, it has 1, has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, has 6. So it can go from 1 to 6. You see that? So that's how you do like a die for, a game like Yahtzee or whatever you're playing, that zombie dies or something like that. So that's how you create dies with a random number. All right, guys, hopefully you understand that. If not, take a look at this video again and come ask me any questions that you have. All right, we'll see you in the next video. Take care.